the children don't have a male figure in the house to whoop and grow them. Half young girls, the opposite of virgins, and thugs going to jail until the world ends. Don't make peace or the devil twist up your net. This one is a brother to sister moment.
Under submission to you. Tell me what you want me to do. You're like a dream come true. Lifestyle, one husband. He's my Lord, he's my Lord.
Yeah man, this is a family matter man. To all of the man them. You understand? According to the scripture, hear this. Saying I love you can't take care of children. You have to provide food and plate for them. Give the human money, nice appearance for them. Stop depend on your parents, your parent for them. You have to have pity and patient with them. Let be a compliment and get straight confidence. It's not complicated if you comprehend that you have to love your wife like you do love yourself.
Under submission to you. Tell me what you want me to do. You're like a dream come true. Lifestyle, one husband. He's my Lord, he's my Lord. He's my Lord, he's my Lord.
Test.
Baby, you show me what it's true love. Under submission to you. One man.
Test.
Tell me what you want me to do. Baby, you show me what it's true love. Under submission to you. One man, you're the one I dream of. Tell me what you want me to do. Baby, you show me what it's true love. Under submission to you. One man, you're the one I dream of. Tell me what you want me to do. Baby, you show me what it's true love. Under submission to you. One man, you're the one I
Hey, Shalom, Israel, can y'all see and hear me?
want me to do.
First Peter 2 and 9, we that holy nation, royal priesthood. Priesthood, yeah, we that royal priesthood. Got special possession, priesthood, priesthood. We that royal priesthood, priesthood. Congregation of the dead, my only concern was getting bread. The bread that I received was that of affliction, He who have an ear, that's who gon' listen, I was a hard-hearted, stiff-necked, rebellious nigga. Would've shed my brother's blood for the sake of holding a grudge. Proverbs 11 and 12, my footsteps was leading to hell. Trying to prove I wasn't frail. Laws in my heart, so I live forever. Everything I do, that's why I do it better. Psalm 19 and 7, that's what made me clever. If I detect some sin, know it's getting severed. Leo Dr. Flat like a steamroller, spitting fire like a flamethrower. That's Jeremiah 23 and 29. When I heard this truth, it blew my mind like a suicide. Keep these laws or you never die. Going harder than a collision. Restoring my nation, that is my mission. Preach to the children and end off the vision. Giving you light to clear up your vision. Priesthood. Let's go. Yo,
Oh God, how I worship you. I never thought this kind of love was actual. I used to deem you terrible, heartless and cruel. Till I found out just how terrible but wonderful. The glory the world give me, I give back to you. I can see your name all day, yes Lord, I know it's true. Some think that make them blood special close to you. But me knowing what you show, that ain't enough for you. I struggle every day to do a perfect sacrifice like Christ told us to do. Fast and pray to shake that serpent loose. With a little bit of arms that'll help you too. Gotta examine yourself, be real with yourself, cry aloud for some help. Watch the company you keep, it's a reflection of self. Listen to furnace, I put on your armor on and do. Every single day I do. Every single day, gotta send praises to you. Gotta send praises to you. I gotta send my precious fervent up to you. Gotta send my praises up to you. Gotta send my praises up to you. Gotta send my praise. I gotta send my precious fervent up to you.
Bezaleel.
Hallelujah. In the world I was
was a nigga. Okay, I admit I was sick. I spilled seed and I smoked weed. My biggest pet peeve, how I tarnished my lips. I heard the prophet speak, standing in the streets, yelling, "You gotta repent." I read Deuteronomy and the prophecy, clearly talking about ships. What we have here is a history book that we took. Some open up and still overlook, like who the saints, who the crooks. The simple fact is that Christ is black, and he came to save who? The Israelites. Matthew 1:21, get it right. If you out of order, you get put to flight. Nobody pass, go ahead, laugh. The wage of sin is when you do the math, equals fornication, hate, murder, add, equals death. You are damned, especially when you fall in the hand of the Most High. Keep playing, you don't die. He can literally kill your soul and bring you back again to straight fry. Forever, forever, ever, forever, ever. That's Revelations 21, the verse right after 7, verse 8. The point I'm trying to make, when your ass off in that lake and you on your second take, meaning death, you can't scream for help. No, ain't no need for that. Team swing low, sweet chariot, take us out of here. You should have repent. Now you a fish, burnt the crisp, forcing the course of the river. It's been real, but you just died a real nigga. Go figure, that go figure around your neck. The Jesus peace can't bring you peace. Read Habakkuk 2:18.
Hey, shalom, shalom, Israel. Most High in Christ bless you all. So today, my name is Officer Kalaya, Iuic, Columbia. 4 chapters today. Everybody stand up, face the east, and let's send the prayers up. Dear Heavenly Father, God of our salvation, save us and gather us together, and deliver us from the heathen, so that we may give thanks unto thy great name, and glory unto thy praise. Blessed be thy holy name in the name of Israel forever. O Heavenly Father, let them be confounded who persecute us, but let not us be confounded. Let our enemies be dismayed, but let not us be dismayed. Bring upon our enemies the day of evil, and destroy them with double destruction. O Heavenly Father, forgive our fathers for breaking your laws, and please forgive us for breaking your laws. Help us to never bring shame upon thy great name, nor reproach against our works. For surely we have turned ourselves to thee, O Heavenly Father, striving to be upright. And as we confess our faults, please grant us protection against our faults. Cleanse us of our secret faults, and guide us into the best of morals. For surely our prayers, our sacrifices, our lives, and our deaths are all for thee. We thank you, O Heavenly Father, for bringing us upon another holy Sabbath. Be with us as we go out to war against the enemies that are against your people, Father. Bless our leadership. Bless our sons and our daughters, our wives, Father, and allow us another chance to come in the glory of your Son, Jesus the Christ, and to be a better creature that you have created upon this earth. We ask these things in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen. All right, shalom, Israel. Most High in Christ bless. Officer Kalaya, Iuic, Columbia, South Carolina. This is 4 chapters a day. We'll be picking up from 2 Kings chapter 3. And basically, I hope brothers have been paying attention and really keeping notes as to where we are in the history concerning our forefathers and getting an understanding of what's going on. So I'll be picking up from 2 Kings chapter 2 and verse 3, dealing with just Elisha and his acts or his ministry during this particular time. So we know that Elisha has taken on a double portion of the spirit of Elijah, and there's a lot of good acts that he's doing within these chapters that we're going to read today. So I'm going to start right here at chapter 3. This is 2 Kings chapter 2, chapter 3 and verse 1. Now Jeroham the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel in Samaria the 18th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and reigned 12 years. And he wrought evil in the sight of the Lord, but not like his father and like his mother, but he put away the image of Baal that his father had made. So if you've been studying the history, we know that he reared up images, causing the kingdoms to go off. All right, and we could get that. I'll get that later, but have a precept for that. But verse 3, Nevertheless, he cleaved into the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, which made Israel to sin. He departed not. He departed not therefrom. And Mesha, king of Moab, was a sheep master, and rendered unto the king of Israel 100,000 lambs and 100,000 rams with wool. But it came to pass, when Ahab was dead, that the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel, and King Jeroham went out of Samaria the same time and numbered all Israel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, saying, The king of Moab hath rebelled against me, and wilt thou go with me against Moab to battle? And he said, I will go up, and I will go up. I am as thou art my people, as thy people, and my horses as thy horses. And he said, Which way shall we go up? And he answered, The way through the wilderness of Edom. So the king of Israel went, and the king of Judah, and the king of Edom, and they fetched a compass of 7 days' journey, and there was no water for the host and for the cattle that followed them. And the king of Israel said, Alas, and the king of Israel said, Alas, that the Lord hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. But Jehoshaphat said, Is there not here a prophet of the Lord that we may require of the Lord by him? And one of the king of Israel's servants answered and said, Here is Elisha, the son of Shaphat, which poured out water on the hands of Elijah. So basically in the history right now, Moab rebels against Israel and is going into battle, and the kings are going up to battle with Moab. All right, but the kings are asking, is there a prophet amongst Israel? So one of these men are saying, yes, there is a prophet. The prophet that is from Elisha, who reigned or was under the hand of Elijah during Elijah's time. Verse 12, and Jehoshaphat said, The word of the Lord is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said unto the king of Israel, What have I to do with thee? So Elisha is confronting them. He's saying, What have I to do with thee? What have I to do with thee? Get thee to the prophets of thy father and to the prophets of thy mother. And the king of Israel said unto him, Nay, for the Lord hath called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. And Elisha said, As the Lord of hosts liveth, before whom I stand surely, were it not that I regarded the presence of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, I would not look toward thee nor see thee. So basically he's saying, if it wasn't for the king of Judah, Jehoshaphat, that he would not be paying these other kings, or he wouldn't even address this situation. All right. So he says in verse 15, But now bring me a minstrel. And it came to pass, when the minstrel played, that the hand of the Lord came upon him, and he said, Thus saith the Lord, Make this valley full of ditches. For thus saith the Lord, Ye shall not see wind, neither shall ye see rain, yet the valley shall be filled with water, that ye may drink, both ye and your cattle and your beasts. And this is but a light thing in the sight of the Lord. He will deliver the Moabites also into your hand, and ye shall smite every fenced city and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all the wells of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones. And it came to pass in the morning, when the meat offering was offered, that behold, there came water by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. And when all the Moabites heard that the kings were come up to fight against them, they gathered all that were able to put on armor and upward, and stood in the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone upon the water. And the Moabites saw the water on the other side as it was blood. So that goes to show you that where their understanding is at anyway. And it also goes to show you why these heathens hate Israel so much, even to this day, because during this time when the Lord was with us, hey, we were a hell of a people to be reckoned with. All right, we won many battles, and all battles by the hand of the Lord, and the ones that we lost were because of the Lord too. All right, so here you can see why Moab does the things that he does to our people, even in this time. Is because we were whooping their behinds back during these times right here. All right, verse 22. And they rose up early in the morning, and when the sun shone on the water, so the sun is shining on the water, right? And the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. So they thought, they figured that was blood. And they said, this is blood. The kings are surely slain. So they thought that the kings and the men that came to war against them were dead, were slain already. And they have smitten one another. So they thought we killed one another. Now, therefore, Moab to the spoil. So now they're going to run to the spoil, or to the destruction that they think is the slain of the kings. And when they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and smote the Moabites, so that they fled before them. But they went forward, smiting all the Moabites, even in their countries. So there it is, us putting Moab to flight. Verse 25. And they beat down the cities on every good piece of land, cast every man his stone, and filled it. And they stopped all the wells of water, and felled all the good trees. Only in Kahashereth left they the stones thereof. Howbeit the slingers went about it and smote it. And when the king of Moab saw that the battle was too sore for him, he took with him 700 men and drew swords to break through even unto the king of Edom, but they could not. So they tried to run through Edom, but they could not break through. Then he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead, and offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was a great indignation against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land. So here you have in chapter 3, the Moabites trying to come against Israel and being slain and put to death. As I said before, this is a testament to what we see going on today with our people when it comes to these heathen nations, especially Moab. I saw a picture that Captain Yadan posted today where our people are out, got a line wrapped around the Moabite stores for hair. But here in the scriptures, we see that these people feared us, and when the hand of the Lord is with us, when we're in our right mind and our prayers go forth, the Lord fights for us. All right, chapter 4. Now there cried a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets unto Elisha, saying, Thy servant, my husband, is dead, and thou knowest that thy servant did fear the Lord, and the creditor is come to take unto him my 2 sons to be bondmen. So here we have a woman. Her husband dies. Obviously, they're in debt to the creditor, and because the husband dies, the creditor is coming to take the sons to work off the debt. So she goes to the man of the Lord, Elisha, to require a thing. Let's see what that thing is. And Elisha said unto her, What shall I do for thee? Tell me, what hast thou in thy house? And she said, Thine handmaid hath not anything in thy house save a pot of oil. Then he said, Go, borrow thee vessels abroad of all thy neighbors, even empty vessels. Borrow not a few. And when thou art come in, thou shalt shut the door upon thee and upon thy sons, and shalt pour out into all the vessels, and thou shalt set aside that which is full. So she went from him and shut the door upon her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured out. And it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said unto her son, Bring me yet. And unto her, There is not a vessel more. And the oil stayed. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, Go, sell the oil and pay thy debt, and live thou and thy children of rest. So here she was poor. She didn't have anything. Elisha told her to go and borrow vessels, even empty vessels, from the neighbors, who are your people, the children of Israel. And these vessels were filled through the Spirit of the Lord, through Elijah, for this woman, so that she could pay off her debt. So what we're reading, continuing from the time of Elijah and Elisha getting a double portion of the Spirit of Elijah, his acts during this time and the deeds that he did unto Israel during this time. Verse 8, And it fell on a day that Elisha passed to Shunem, where was a great woman, and she constrained him to eat bread. And so it was, that as oft as he passed by, she turned in thither to eat bread. He turned in thither to eat bread. And she said unto her husband, Behold, now I perceive that this is a holy man of God, which passes by us continually. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed, and a table, and a stool, and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. So she wanted to put, might as well say, like a cot into the corner of their house. So anytime that Elisha was passing through the land and was passing through the city, he could stop here, eat bread, and rest. All right. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall. Verse 10 again. Let us make a little chamber, I pray thee, on the wall, and let us set for him there a bed and a table and a stool and a candlestick. And it shall be, when he cometh to us, that he shall turn in thither. And it fell on a day that he came thither, and he turned into the chamber and lay there. And he said to Gehazi his servant, call the Shunammite. And when he called her, she stood before him. And he said unto him, he said unto him, say now unto her, behold, thou hast been careful for us with all this care. What is to be done for thee? Wouldst thou be spoken of for the king or the captain of the host? And she answered, I dwell among my own people. And he said, what then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, verily, she hath no child, and her husband is old. And he said, call her. And when he had called her, she stood in the door. And he said, about this season, according to the time of life, thou shalt embrace a son. She said, nay, my lord, thou man of God, do not lie unto thine handmaid. And the woman conceived and bare a son at that season that Elisha had said unto her, according to the time of life. So here the Shunammite, this woman, after she sets a corner for Elisha to pass, when he passes through her house, Elisha wants to give her a blessing. So he calls Gehazi, who is his servant, and asks what should be done of this woman. And Gehazi tells him that she has no children, her husband is old, give her a child. So he tells her that she's going to have a child, but she does something similar to our foremother, Sarah. She really doesn't believe it, all right? So she says, don't lie to me, all right? So I want to say what we need to do is we have to imagine something Captain Shemaiah said earlier this week when he's reading the scripture, which is something I do and I know a lot of other brothers do as well. You have to imagine what's taking place within the scriptures when we're reading the scriptures, all right? Bishop says it all the time. We have to put ourselves there. So we have to imagine what is actually taking place here, all right? So Elisha tells her that she's going to bear a son around this time, all right, according to the time of her life. Verse 18. And when the child was grown, it fell on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said unto his father, my head, my head. And he said to the lad, carry him to his mother. So the child, what we would perceive has a headache, but obviously it's something a little more than a headache. We're going to find out. And he said to the lad, carry him to his mother. And when he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees till noon, and then died. So the child died from what we might perceive as a headache, all right? And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of God and shut the door upon him and went out. So she took the child that died on her lap, her child, and she put him in that bed, or in that, it says in the bed of the man of God, which is for Elisha, that she built over in verse 9 and 10, when 10 and 11, when she's telling her husband to let's put a chamber here. So she takes the child and put him into the bed that she made for Elisha. Verse 22. And she called unto her husband and said, send me, I pray thee, one of the young men and one of the asses, that I may run to the man of God and come again. And he said, wherefore wilt thou go to him today? So he's asking, why do you want to go to him today? Is it neither new moon nor Sabbath? And she said, it shall be well. Then she saddled an ass and said to her servant, drive and go forward. Slack not thy riding from me, except I bid thee. So she went and came unto the man of God to Carmel. And it came to pass, when the man of God saw her afar off, that he said to Gehazi his servant, behold yonder the Shunammite. So he said, look, that's the sister. Run now, I pray thee, to meet her, and seek and say unto her, Is it well with thee? Is it well with thy husband? Is it well with the child? And she answered, It is well. And when she came to the man of God to the hill, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. And the man of God said, Let her alone. So Gehazi trying to get her out of there. He like, trying to stop her. Verse 27, again, he says, and when she came to the man of God to the hill, so she got to Elisha, she caught him by the feet. But Gehazi came near to thrust her away. So he went to push her away from Elisha. And the man of God said, Let her alone, for her soul is vexed within her. And the Lord hath hid it from me, and hath not told me. Then she said, Did I desire a son of the Lord? Did I not say, Do not deceive me? So she's approaching Elisha. Elisha is saying, Did I ask of a son ask for a son of the Lord? And I asked you not to deceive me in this thing? Verse 29. Then he said to Gehazi, Gird up thy loins, and take my staff in thine hand, and go thy way. If thou meet any man, salute him not. And if any salute thee, answer him not again. And lay my staff upon the face of this child. So he wanted him to get there in a hurry. And the mother of the child said, As the Lord liveth, and as thy soul liveth, I will not leave thee. And he arose and followed her. And Gehazi passed on before them, and laid the staff upon the face of the child. So Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, he goes before the Shunammite and Elisha, and puts the staff on the face of the child. But there was neither voice nor hearing. Wherefore he went again to meet him, and told him, saying, The child is not awake. And when Elisha was come into the house, behold, the child was dead. So the child was dead when Elisha got there, and laid upon his bed. He went in therefore, and shut the door upon them twain, and prayed unto the Lord. So he goes in and he closes the door. It's just him and the child, and he sent prayers up to the Lord for this child. And he went up and lay upon the child, and put his mouth unto his mouth, and his eyes upon his eyes, and his hands upon his hands, and stretched forth himself upon the child. And the flesh of the child waxed warm. So the child began to get heat again into his body. Then he returned and walked in the house. To and fro. He's pacing back and forth. And went up and stretched himself upon him. And the child sneezed 7 times. And the child opened his eyes. So he's pacing back and forth in the house. He goes and stretches himself back over the child. You got to envision this thing. You got to see it in your mind. Verse 36. And he called Gehazi and said, Call this Shunammite. So he called her. And when she was come in unto him, he said, Take up thy son. Then she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and took up her son and went out. So again, Elisha performs another act of God. All right. He saves this child's life, brings this child back to life. Again, like I said, you got to imagine what Elisha is doing during these times. All right. Verse 38. And Elisha came, this is probably one of Bishop's first favorite parts here. Verse 38. And Elisha came again to Gilgal, and there was a dearth in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him. And he said unto his servant, Set on the great pot, and seethe pottage for the sons of the prophets. And one went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered thereof wild grapes, his lap full, and came and shred them in the pot of pottage, for they knew them not. So they didn't know of these vines. These were wild vines that he went and got and put in the pot. All right, that's why it says, for they knew them not. So they poured out for all the men to eat. And it came to pass, as they were eating of the pottage, that they cried out and said, O thou man of God, there is death in the pot. And they could not eat thereof. But he said, then bring meal, and he cast it into the pot. And he said, Pour out for the people, that they may eat. And there was no harm in the pot. So he had cured the inedible foods or vines or wild herbs that were put into the pot. And there came a man, verse 42, and there came a man from Baal Shalisha, and brought the man and brought the man of God bread for the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley, and 20 loaves of barley, and full ears of corn in the husk thereof. And he said, Give unto the people that they may eat. And his servitor said, What should I set this before 100 men? He said again, Give the people that they eat. For thus saith the Lord, they shall eat and shall leave thereof. So he set it before them, and they did eat, and there left according to the word, and therefore left according to the word of the Lord. So here again, Elisha cures the food. It makes the food edible for the men of God and for the sons of the prophets, that they may eat and no harm came to them. All right. Chapter 5. Chapter 5 and verse 1. Now Naomi, captain of the host of the king of Assyria, was a great man with his master, and honorable, because by him the Lord had given deliverance unto Syria. He was also a mighty man in valor, but he was a leper. So this valiant man, Naomi, he was a leper. His pigmentation was not in his skin. He was leopard. And the Syrians had gone out by companies and had brought away captive out of the land of Israel a little maid, and she waited on Naomi's wife. So this is an Israelite sister that is a servant to Naomi's wife. And she said unto her mistress, Would God my Lord were with the prophet that is in Samaria, for he would recover him of leprosy. And he went in and told his Lord, saying, Thus and thus said the maid that is of the land of Israel. And the king of Syria said, Go, and I will send a letter unto the king of Israel. And he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver and 6,000 pieces of gold and 10 changes of raiment. Verse 6. And he brought the letter to the king of Israel, saying, Now, when this letter is come unto thee, behold, I have therewith sent Naomi my servant to thee, that thou mayest recover him of leprosy. And it came to pass, when the king of Israel had read the letter, that he rent his clothes and said, Am I God to kill and to make alive, that this man doeth send unto me to recover a man of his leprosy? Therefore, consider, I pray you, and see how he seeketh a quarrel against me. So he's thinking that this man is seeking a quarrel against him. In other words, he's saying, who does he think I am? I don't have the power to make alive or to kill. How can I cure this man of his leprosy? All right. Verse 8. And it was so, when Elisha, the man of God, had heard that the king of Israel had rent his clothes, that he sent to the king, saying, Wherefore hast thou rent thy clothes? Let him come now to me, and he shall know that there is a prophet in Israel. So Elisha hears this thing that Naomi, that the king of Syria wants for Naomi, which is to cleanse him of his leprosy. And he hears of this thing that the king is renting his clothes because he knows that that's something that he can't do. So Elisha is telling them, send him to me that he may know that there is a prophet in Israel. Verse 9. So Naomi came with his horses and with his chariot and stood at the door of the house of Elisha. And Elisha sent a messenger unto him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. So Naomi comes to Elisha's house, and Elisha tells him, hey, go bathe in the Jordan River. All right, 7 times, and your skin is going to be clean. But let's look at the pride of this, of Naomi. Verse 10 again. And Elisha sent a messenger to him, saying, Go and wash in the Jordan 7 times, and thy flesh shall come again to thee, and thou shalt be clean. But Naomi was wroth, so he got mad, and went away and said, Behold, I thought he would surely come out to me and stand and call on the name of the Lord his God and strike his hands over the place and recover the leper. So he in his own mind is thinking that when he gets there, Elisha's going to pray to God and touch him, and his leprosy is just going to clear up like that. But that wasn't the process. Elisha told him, go wash in the river 7 times. But in his pride, he doesn't do that. He complains. All right. Verse 12. Are not Abana and Fahafa, rivers of Damascus, better than in all the rivers of Israel? So he's saying that these rivers are better than the rivers of Israel. May I not wash in them and be clean? So he turned and went away in his rage. So in his wrath, in his rage, he turns and he goes saying that these rivers are better than the rivers of Israel. So he's thinking of something more physical cleansing than a spiritual cleansing. All right. His mind he's carnal right now. He's not thinking the way that Elisha is thinking. All right. Verse 14. Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times. Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. So now he goes down to the river Jordan anyway. All right. Did I miss a verse? I 13. Yeah, because I didn't hear it in my mind. Verse 13. Verse 13. And his servants came near and spake unto him and said, My father, if the prophet had bid thee to do some great thing, wouldst thou have not done it? How much rather then when he said to thee, wash and be clean? So his servant is telling him, if the prophet had told you to do something, would you have not done it? The man of the Lord told you to do a specific thing. Why didn't you do it? All right, verse 14. So he takes the heed. He takes heed to what the servant says. Verse 14. Then went he down and dipped himself 7 times in Jordan, according to the saying of the man of God. And his flesh came again like unto the flesh of a little child, and he was clean. And he returned to the man of God. He and all his company, and came and stood before him. And he said, Behold, now I know that there is no God in all the earth but in Israel. Now therefore I pray thee, take a blessing of thy servant. So now after he goes and do this thing, he got his flesh back. He's like, there ain't no other God on the earth but the God of Israel. Verse 16. But he said, As the Lord liveth, before whom I stand, I will receive none. So Elisha tells him, I don't want to receive none of these things. I don't need a blessing. And he urged him to take it, but he refused. So Elisha refused to take anything from this man. And Naomi said, Shall there not then, I pray thee, be given to thy servant 2 mules, burden of earth? For thy servant will henceforth offer neither burnt offering nor sacrifice unto other gods, but unto the Lord. So now he's like, I ain't offering no more burnt offerings to nobody but the Lord, but the God of Israel. Verse 18. In this thing the Lord pardon thy servant, that when my master goeth into the house of Rimnon to worship there, and he leaneth on my hand and bow himself in the house of Rimnon, when I bow down myself in the house of Rimnon, the Lord pardon thy servant in this thing. So now he's saying, when I get back home, basically, and my master go to worship these other gods, and I gotta bow down with him, hey, pray the Lord, let the Lord pardon me of this thing. Verse 19. And he said unto him, Go in peace. So he departed from him a little way. Verse 20. But Gehazi, who was the servant of Elisha, but Gehazi, the servant of Elisha, the man of God, said, Behold, my master has spared Naomi the Syrian, is not receiving at his hand that which he brought. But as the Lord liveth, I will run after him and take somewhat of him. So Gehazi followed after Naomi, and when Naomi saw him running after him, he lighted down from the chariot and met him and said, Is all well? So you got to imagine this thing. The Syrian is leaving. He's been cleansed of his leprosy. He's offered Elisha, gifts for his services and for the blessing that he has received through Elisha by the Spirit of the Lord. And Elisha doesn't take anything. So now Gehazi is like, shoot, Elisha ain't take nothing. I'm gonna go get some of that. That's what he's thinking. That's how people are today. That's how you know this Israel right here, because that's how Israel think right now today. All right, I'll stop that. Verse 23. Verse 22. And he said, All is well. My master has sent me. So he lying. My master has sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets. Give them, I pray thee, a talent of silver and 2 changes of garments. Because remember, the brother brought 10 changes of raiment with him. And Naomi said, Be content, take 2 talents. And he urged him and bound 2 talents of silver in 2 bags, and went 2 changes, and with 2 changes of garments, and laid them upon 2 of his servants, and they bared them before him. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house. And he let the men go and departed. So he done went and put the stuff up like a good old thief. He done took it. He done took the stuff that he got from Naomi. He done put it up. Tell everybody, all right, y'all, go ahead, get out of here. You know what I mean? Just like a thief. Verse 24 again. And when he came to the tower, he took them from their hand and bestowed them in the house, and let the men go, and they departed. But he went in and stood before his master. And Elisha said unto him, Whence comest thou, Gehazi? So Elisha's asking, where you coming from, Gehazi? Where you been at? And he said, Thy servant went no whither. So he said, I've been right here chilling around. I ain't went nowhere. I've been right here, Elisha. I ain't went nowhere. And he said unto him, Went not mine heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? So in other words, he says, verse 26, he said unto him, Went not mine heart with thee? He said, went not my mind with you? All right. I knew you was going to do this thing. When the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee, is it a time to receive money and to receive garments and olives and olive yards and vineyards and sheep and oxen and men servants and maid servants? He says, so is there, in other words, he's saying, is there's not a time to receive these things? That during the time that Elisha is saying, during the time that I cured this Syrian of his leprosy, I didn't take these things because there's a time to receive these things. This wasn't the time. So he says to Gehazi, the leprosy thereof of Naomi, the leprosy therefore of Naomi shall cleave unto thee and unto thy seed forever. And he went over from his presence, a leper as white as snow. So again, we have another act of the Lord through Elisha, cleansing the Syrians' leprosy. But also in this right here, we need to see how we as Israel thought back then and how we continue to think today. Elisha didn't take the gifts that the Syrian was offering him, but his servants saw that Naomi had offered and brought these gifts to give to Elisha once he was cleansed, or if he had performed this act of restoring his flesh back to him and curing the leprosy. He saw this thing and saw that Elisha didn't take it, but took it upon himself to go and lie to Naomi to acquire these things, and then he went and put them up in his house like he never did it. So Elisha tells him that the leprosy that Naomi was cured from is not going to cleave unto you and your house forever. So we got to be mindful. That brings a script in mind. Let me see. Let's go to Ecclesiastes in the Bible, chapter 3, real quick, because he said, is there not a time to receive these gifts? Real quick, just a quick sidebar. What time we got? Ecclesiastes in the Bible, chapter 3. Because this is a heavy thing when we see what happened to Gehazi. All right, this is Ecclesiastes chapter 3 in the Bible. Chapter 3 and verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under heaven. This is exactly what Elisha told Gehazi. There's a time to receive these things. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose. That's what he was explaining. There's a time to get these things and there's a time to lose these things, as we're reading right here in Ecclesiastes. When we go back to chapter 5, verse 26, Elisha's telling Gehazi, and he said unto him, went not mine heart with thee when the man turned again from his chariot to meet thee? Is it a time to receive money and to receive garments and olive trees? That's what verse 6 is explaining here in Ecclesiastes. So we can't be hasty in taking things or in hasty in trying to gather things for ourselves and doing it by in an unjust way. All right. We'll stop that. All right. Chapter 6 now. Again, we're reading the acts of, or the ministry of Elisha and some of the things that he did during his time after receiving a double portion of the prophet Elijah's spirit. So the brother's doing a lot of godly acts in the sight of Israel, which was very prominent during this time. Like, Israel needed to see these things, but we still rebelled. We're still a rebellious people. Chapter 6 and verse 1. And the sons of the prophet said unto Elisha, behold, now the place where we dwell with thee is too strait for us. Let us go and pray thee. Let us go, we pray thee, unto Jordan, and take hence every man a beam, and let us make us a place there where we may dwell. And he answered, go ye. And one said, be content, I pray thee, and go with thy servants. And he answered, I will go. So he went with them, and when they came to Jordan, they cut down wood. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried and said, alas, master, for it was borrowed. So here, felling trees means cutting trees. They were cutting trees. As they're cutting the trees, one of the axe heads falls into the water. And he's calling to Elisha saying, dang, man, I borrowed that axe. So it wasn't his axe. It fell in the water. It wasn't his. He borrowed it. And the man of God said, where fell it? So Elisha's asking, where did it fall into the water at? And he showed him the place. And he cut down a stick and cast it in thither, and the iron did swim. Now you got to think about that. Iron. We're talking about iron. You throw a piece of iron in the water, it's going to the bottom of it. It's going to the bottom. Elisha, right here, that's why for lambacking off of what Captain Shemai said earlier this week, you got to envision this. All right, like Bishop says, you got to put yourself there. This brother's cutting a tree, and the axe falls into the water. The axe head falls into the water. Elisha asking where it's at. Where did it fall? He cuts a stick, casts the stick into the water where the axe fell, and the iron floats. It floats. You got to think about that thing. Now, therefore, he said, take it up, meaning get it out of the water. Take it up to thee and put out of his hand, and let's read that again. Therefore, he said, take it up to thee. And he put out his hand and took it. So he reached out and grabbed the axe head that had fell in the water that Elisha just made float. So he grabs the axe out of the water. Verse 8. Then the king of Assyria warred against Israel, and he took counsel with his servants, saying, in such and such a place shall be a camp. So he's saying, we're gonna put a camp here, we're gonna put a camp there. And the man of God sent unto the king of Israel, saying, beware that thou pass not such a place, for thither the Syrians are come down. And the king of Israel sent to the place which the man of God told him, and warned him of, and saved himself there, not once nor twice. Therefore the heart of the king of Syria was sore troubled for this thing. And he called his servants and said unto them, will ye not show me which of us is for the king of Israel? So he's like, somebody's for the king of Israel in here. Show me who it is. And one of his servants said, none, my lord, O king, But Elisha the prophet that is in Israel telleth the king of Israel the words that thou speakest in thy bedchamber. And he said, go and spy where he is. So he's sending spies to spy out where Elisha is. He says, go and spy where he is, that I may send and fetch him. And it was told him, saying, behold, he is in Dothan. He is in Dothan. Therefore sent he thither horses, chariots, and a great host. And they came by night and compassed the city about. And when the servant of the man of God was risen early and come forth, behold, an host compassed the city, both horses and chariots. And his servant said unto him, alas, my master, how shall we go? And he answered, fear not, for they that be with us are more than they that be with him. So the servant of Elisha is like, man, how we going to pass by with all these horses and chariots there? So Elisha's telling him, and which is something that we have to understand right now in this time when we go out to war. All right, there's more with us than with our enemies. We have the angels of the Lord with us, and this is what Elisha is making clear to these brothers. Verse 17, and Elisha prayed and said, Lord, I pray thee, open his eyes, that he may see. And the Lord opened the eyes of the young man, and he saw. And behold, the mountain was full of horses and chariots, and a fire around about Elisha. So the Lord opens his eyes, and this brother sees chariots. All right, it says it says, behold, the mountain was full of horses. So he sees horses and chariots and fire round about Elisha. So he sees horses, chariots, and fire surrounding Elisha. You got to imagine this in your brain. And when he came down to it, and we came down to him, Elisha prayed unto the Lord and said, smite this people, I pray thee, with blindness. And he smote them with blindness according to the word of Elisha. And Elisha said to them, this is not the way, neither is this the city. Follow me, and I will bring you to the man whom ye seek. But he led them to Samaria. And it came to pass, when they were come to Samaria, that Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men, that they may see. And the Lord opened their eyes, and they saw, and behold, they were in the midst of Samaria. And the king of Israel said unto Elisha, when he saw them, my father, shall I smite them? Shall I smite them? And he answered, thou shalt not smite them. Wouldst thou smite those whom thou hast taken captive with thine sword and with thy bow? Set bread and water before them, that they may eat and drink, and go to their master. And he prepared their great provision for them. So they made a great feast for them. And when they had eaten and drunk, he sent them away, and they went to their master. So the bands of Assyria came no more into the land of Israel. Verse 24. And it came to pass after this, that Benhadad, king of Syria, gathered all his hosts and went up and besieged Samaria. And there was a great famine in Samaria. And behold, they besieged it until an ass's head was sold for 80 pieces of silver, and the fourth part of a cab of dove's dung for 5 pieces of silver. And the king of Israel was passing by upon the wall. There cried a woman unto him, saying, help, my lord, O king. And he said, if the Lord do not help thee, whence shall I help thee? Out of the barn floor, or out of the wine press? So he said, if the Lord can help you, I'm gonna help you. And the king said unto her, and the king said unto her, what aileth thee? So what's wrong with you? And she answered, this woman said unto me, give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son and did eat him. And I said unto her on the next day, give thy son, that we may eat him. And she had hid her son. So this woman done tricked this sister done tricked this other sister into saying, look, the famine is so bad, let us boil our kids. You boil your son today, we're going to eat your son today, and tomorrow we're going to boil my son and eat my son tomorrow. So they boil this first sister's son, eat the son. So the next day comes, this sister, she's hiding her son. All right. Verse 30. And it came to pass, when the king heard the words of the woman, that he rent his clothes, and he passed by upon the wall, and the people looked, and behold, he had sackcloth within upon his flesh. So he rent his clothes for this thing. Then he said, God, do so and more also to me, if the head of Elisha the son of Shaphat shall stand on him this day. But Elisha sat in the house, and the elders sat with him. And the king sent a man from the king sent a man from before him. But ere the messenger came in to him, he said to the elders, see ye how the son of a murderer has set to take away mine head? Look, when the messenger cometh, shut the door, and hold him fast at the door. Is it not the sound of his master's feet behind him? So this man is coming to take Elisha's head. He's telling him this man's master is behind him. That's who gave the order. And while he yet talked with him, behold, the messenger came. The messenger came down unto him and said, behold, this evil is of the Lord. What should I wait for the Lord any longer? He said, what should I wait for the Lord any longer? So that's what he's asking. All right. So here, there's a lot of good acts of Elisha taking place within these chapters right here. I would advise, you read it a couple of times, get understanding of it, ask the men in your camp. But we got to get out of the way for the TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. All praises for another Sabbath day approaching upon us. Lord's will, y'all got something out of these 4 chapters. Again, my name is Officer Kalaya, South Carolina. This is 4 chapters a day. And we'll see you guys. I think we're doing it Monday through Friday now. So y'all stay tuned for next Monday for the 4 chapters a day as when we continue. Lord's will, y'all have a blessed Sabbath. All right? With that, we say shalom, Most High in Christ bless.